Well, nice to see all you guys, and I can't even imagine how much fun it must be to work on a horror film like this. Any comments?
We did have a lot of fun.
We had a lot of fun.
Funnily enough, though, I think most of the fun I had was just being with you two. Which was on and off set.
Well, it's a nice break from running and screaming and being intense for 3.5 months. You gotta kind of wind down afterwards.
It's a helpful bond.
Although you guys are quite young, how did Nightmare on Elm Street, the original, did it affect any of you? Are you horror fans? Did you guys watch it?
Thomas is a huge horror fan.
Yeah.
I'm not a horror fan, but I did watch it when I was like 12 years old, and it really, truly disturbed me.
I like horror movies, but I actually hadn't even seen the original all the way through until we got to set.
Was that intentional? Was it,
Well, I mean, it was one of those things that wasn't intentional for like my whole life, but then you get on set and it was intentional to like wait towards the end of filming to watch it.
Yeah, and it's funny because Freddy Krueger, it doesn't even matter if you're a horror fan or not. Who hasn't heard of Freddy Krueger? He's just one of those iconic horror figures. Why do you guys think that is? What is it about him?
I think he's, one of the only villains in a horror film that has a voice. A lot of them are just silent and stalking, and he actually has a voice, which sort of really elevates him and makes him scarier. And
he's not just somebody who, runs through the woods and cuts you up. There's always, everybody's had a nightmare, everybody's had, a bad dream, and it's kind of relatable in that way. And sleep's a scary thing where if you can't wake up, and everybody has to sleep, so it's a scary. He's a scary guy.
yeah, he is, and he, the thing is, you're right. Everybody has nightmares. Yeah. Who hasn't woke up in one of those cold sweats? But with this, it's I was just wondering, in terms of your preparation for this film, did you guys have to do this sleep deprivation, or did you read into it, or even try it?
In the beginning, I read a lot about it actually, and in the beginning we were trying, or at least I was trying.
Well, I wasn't trying, but I ended up never sleeping anyway because it was just us doing the thing.
In the beginning, we were trying to sort of deprive ourselves, but that didn't last that long.
It's an exhausting movie. You gotta sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about the intensity of working on this film, because although we were joking in the beginning that it's fun to work on, it's got to be pretty intense. You guys, why don't you start?
Yeah, I mean, these two had an infinitely larger amount of stunts and things that they went through. I mean, but it was the days that I shot, especially because we were all doing night shoots consistently, were tiring, and particularly I think a lot of the stuff in the boiler room, which probably for all three of us was really rough because it was a real, paint factory, yeah, and it was really hard to work in there, and it was just, I mean, the air was awful, and it was exhausting, and personally, I really hated having to run so much because I don't really like moving much. So, Rooney, you go.
Yeah, I would say the boiler. I mean, really every set was pretty intense, and but the boiler room especially, it was because it was like a real old paint factory. It was dirty and smoky, and it was really hard to be in that room. All day, especially because we really never saw the light of day.
And you guys were put through the ringer. I mean, let's just talk about all the makeup, the blood, and going through all that. I mean, you come out of this big vat of blood. Gross!
Yeah, that was gross. And it was freezing. I was literally almost hypothermic that day. I think I fainted at the end of that day. It was heavy, too, that blood. My clothes were just like my sweater, was like
you had a sweater down
stretched.
Your ankles.
Yeah, it was all the way down to my ankles by the end of the day because it was so full of that heavy blood.
Yeah. Now, taking over the role of Freddy Krueger, I mean, that's bold, real bold for somebody to do that. And I think Jackie did a spectacular job in this role, really. Hats off to the guy. Start with you. What was it like the first day that you saw him in makeup? Did your reaction to him?
It's intense. I mean, he does genuinely look like a real burn victim, so it's not so much fear in the beginning as much as because we've met Jackie and known Jackie that there's kind of a compassion there, because it's like, oh God, Jackie, you look terrible. What happened to you? But then once he throws a glove on and gets going, it's a totally different game. But when you first see him, it's a bit unnerving. It's kind of an intense experience.
How about for you, Rooney?
Yeah, it was very intense, especially the first time because there was so much anticipation building up to it. I didn't want to see him until I had to be on set with him for the first time, but I kept hearing about it, and you know, he would come in this cloak and to hide from, so no one would see his makeup. And I remember like when he took off the cloak for the first time, it was really intense.
Yeah, and was it hard because he's such a nice person to play opposite somebody and you have to be freaked out by this guy?
Yeah. Well, I remember when I was hanging upside down and he's supposed to be terrorizing me and trying to kill me, he was like the only one who was like, get him down, it's not fair, because Jackie's so nice. So that was kind of odd. It was kind of a reverse. No, I was never scared of Jackie though, but I didn't do a lot of the terrifying, you know, lying in bed with the claws on your legs and stuff like that. I didn't really have to be a part of, so that was lucky.
Were there any claw mishaps?
Yes.
Yeah, the worst.
There's a scene where Jackie's supposed to come at me, and the claws are on hinges, and every once in a while they would kind of come off. So when he went to swipe at me, he was supposed to tuck his fingers, but because it came off, it was still straight out and caught me across my stomach. It wasn't like terrible, but those things are sharp. It was enough to cut you and draw a little blood.
Yeah, and the two of you in this, because your characters develop so well over the film. You know, you start off very introverted, and then of course you have to, you know, what was your bonding process like on the film?
Me and Kyle had actually met before the film. We'd actually screen tested together for a different film twice, so we sort of knew each other before. And we all three of us sort of bonded instantly. I mean, literally, like, by the
Night
second
one.
day.
Yeah, by like night one we were
We
all...
really all, like, we sort of all were sort of kindred spirits. Yeah.
Is this the kind of movie that even if you're not being killed off or you don't need to be on set, you want to be there to watch the kills?
Yeah.
I think it's also because horror movies are so difficult that it's almost like you want a support system. Like,
Yeah.
Because you're always so amped up all day and keeping yourself so high-strung that by the end of the day you're exhausted. And every once in a while it's nice when somebody pops in. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
thanks for stopping
Yeah.
by. Like,
And I was in the
you
scene,
gotta-
but it was amazing to watch the whole Chris flying scene.
Yeah, there's
because
cool
that was
stuff you
like
definitely
2-3 days, and I just stood there yelling in my boxers. But to see how it was being done was just pretty. And of course too, because that scene is such a, like, I remember seeing that scene for the first time when I was like 9 or 10, and being like, and so then being again in that scene was very odd for me. But you know, cool.
Yeah, of course, and we know that, you know, there's this actor, Johnny Depp, I don't know, he was in the original, and look, you know.
Oh, forget him. This is the new one.
I was going to say, look how far he's come from the old Elm Street days. Kyle, you think about that?
Let's not talk about it right now.
Kyle's a movie star.
Well, it's one of those things that the movie's very different. Not very different, but the characters are different. It's just really hard. Like, it's one of those things, it's like his career's developed so much, and it's this amazing, amazing career that when people are like, so Kyle, you've done a couple movies, you're 23, don't screw this up. You know, like, it's kind of unnerving. Like,
No pressure.
like the first time I saw, you know, when it came out that I was announced that I got cast, and it was like, Kyle Gallner playing the Johnny Depp role. I was like, oh no, that's terrible.
At least it's not as bad as me getting asked all the time, you're the Johnny Depp role, and I have to go, no. No,
I mean,
that's Kyle.
it's awesome, but at the same time, it's intimidating. Like, he's one of my, you know, he's somebody I really look up to, and so it's kind of tough in a good way.
I'm sorry, what do you think is the most important ingredient in a horror film? Like, what really freaks people out the most? You start, Thomas.
I would say believability. I mean, I think that, you know, and by that I mean in all sort of ideas of the word, is that you need to believe the characters, you need to believe what's happening, and you need to believe it in your own life, because if you can't put it into your own situation, then it's not going to scare you, then you're separated from the screen. So I think that a lot of the things that really make a horror film work is a truth and just a sort of a singular voice of aggression or of mood or of all that, and I think that this film really does have that. I think Sam worked really hard on that. Every actor in the movie is good. You know, the writing was very much a collaborative process, which I think really worked and helped. And that's what I think it's going to be scary for people, is because it's new, it's current, and it's real.
That is a great answer. Thank you. I
Yes,
have
I
my
have
time just
nothing
wrapped up.
further to say.
You guys were really, really great in this, and congratulations. It's a lot of
Say
fun.
hi to
It's good.
Toronto.
Definitely. Say hi yourself.
Hi, Toronto.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.